When a game series has been around for more than 20 years, it's surprisingly difficult to tell what's real and what's complete nonsense. For years I believed holding down the B button increased your chances of catching Pokemon. It didn't, but when enough people repeat something, eventually it starts sounding like a fact, and Monster Hunter is no different. Players have claimed petting Poogie improves rare drops, that carving certain parts of a monster gives better rewards, and that a hidden inbuilt desire sensor can somehow tell what material you're looking for. No matter how real some things seem, they are simply myths. Join me as we separate the Monster Hunter fact from fiction. Let's begin by looking at one of the oldest rumours in Monster Hunter history. In every Monster Hunter game since the original launch in 2004, you will find Poogie, a little pig that roams around hub areas. Players can carry around, customise, and importantly, pet Poogie. Some players speculated that if you do in fact pet Poogie before a hunt, the game will respond by offering you better rewards. Some players would even go as far to restart the animation if the petting didn't trigger the right reaction, convinced that only a successful interaction would count. You can go look now and find discussions about this on forum boards dating over 13 years old, despite there being zero sources to back up the claim, and Capcom themselves have never confirmed it. No matter how hard you look, there is zero evidence to suggest this rumour would be true. So where did it all begin? Quite frankly, no one knows. More than likely it started the same way many gaming myths do. A player pets Poogie, heads out on a quest, and immediately gets the Rathalos plate they've been looking for. They tell their friends try it, one or two of them maybe get lucky, and before long, coincidence becomes superstition. That superstition becomes tradition and eventually evolves into common knowledge. The rumour became so widespread that even today, you'll find experienced hunters petting Poogie before difficult hunts, not because they truly believe it works, but because at this point, it's part of the Monster Hunter culture. And so, even though this is a complete hoax, if you see a new player trying Monster Hunter for the first time, make sure they know to pet Poogie before they head out. Next up is one I guarantee some of you believe to be true, because when I was first starting out in this series, it made too much sense to be false. After you hunt down a monster, you of course gain the ability to carve materials. The potential drops available are typically linked to the monster's body parts, like horns, claws or wings. Many players like myself back in the day believed that where you stood would impact the materials you would gather. So for example, if I carve at the monster's head, I'm probably more likely to get a horn, right? No. When you press the button to carve, no matter where you stand, you are rolling from the same drop table. Everything with fixed odds. Now this is an interesting one because there is genuine reason as to why someone would think this way. For instance, if you chop off a monster's tail, you are then able to carve it as a separate entity with higher odds of getting a tail-based material. Second example, part break rewards. The hunter is able to get additional materials at the end of a quest as a reward for breaking certain parts of the monster. Those rewards tend to be related to the part you broke, or at least it usually gives you a higher chance of rolling a material in that sense. So quite often, breaking a monster's horn gives the player better chances of getting a horn as a reward. There's a few caveats, it doesn't always work like that, but generally true. The game is teaching you to target and interact with certain areas of a monster, especially if you need those parts to forge new equipment. However, it's simply not the case for carving. Unlike petting Poogie, this one isn't necessarily a rumour. It's more so that the game intuitively feels like it's supposed to work that way, and so people do it. How about we switch up things before getting into a legendary piece of Monster Hunter history? Veterans are gonna know where this is heading, but let's go for it anyway. This is Khezu. Don't look too close. Khezu is rage bait incarnate, a very slow, annoying fight with lots of downtime. Because of its AoE lightning field, there are times where you simply cannot get close, especially in older gen games. Traditionally in these games, when the hunter is spotted by the monster and the fight starts, music begins playing in the background. Some monsters even have their own dedicated soundtracks, a huge part of the game's identity. Here's the rumour. When fighting Khezu, no music will play. But how can that be a rumour when it has to be true or false? And that's the funniest part. It simply is true. When you fight Kezu, no music will play. You fight in complete silence. The first time most players experience this, their reaction isn't curiosity, it's quite often confusion. Many people genuinely assume something's gone wrong in their audio settings or even that it's a bug. Even players who know about it ahead of time still feel very unsettled during the hunt, because every other monster in the series is defined by the music that plays in the back. And this contrast with Kezu is what makes it one of the more memorable encounters in the entire series. Capcom have never officially stated why this is the case, but more generally, of course, they have confirmed that Monster Hunter battle music typically triggers when a large monster detects or engages the player. The community then filled in the gaps by saying, well, Kezu doesn't technically detect the player because it's blind, and so the music doesn't trigger. But it's never been proven in game code that it would work that way, even if we were to go for that explanation. We can then only guess why the choice was made. My personal assumption, Kezu is weird. No music playing is equally weird. It's like driving home from work without any music playing in the car. The silence during this hunt adds an eeriness to the encounter, and it differentiates it from everything else in the series. So yeah, if you ever have the unfortunate opportunity to fight Kezu, don't worry, your game isn't glitching. As much as this sounds like a rumour, it's not. Here's a classic. Does Deviljho eat his own tail? Newer hunters have probably got no idea what I'm talking about, so let me explain. There is a giant pickle monster called Deviljho. During a hunt, its tail is severable like many others. The rumour was that in this instance, Deviljho will in fact eat his own tail. Yes, I understand this sounds stupid, but there was very real reason to believe the myth to be true. 12 years ago, Capcom themselves uploaded a promotional video ahead of the release of Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. In that video, the following is stated.
Deviljho will always eat the meat. He will eat your poisonous meat. He will eat other monsters that are dead. He will eat captured monsters. He will eat his own tail. Wow. Give him the opportunity. So he doesn't care. He will always eat the meat. And
that official endorsement caused players to treat it as fact for many years to come. The problem was that despite thousands of hunters claiming they had seen it, nobody could ever produce definitive footage. Years later, players began actively testing the theory. Some probably even offered cash rewards to anyone who could provide legitimate proof of it happening. Despite countless attempts, nobody ever succeeded. Here's the reality. That original statement from Capcom was simply a fun way of exaggerating Deviljho's boisterous personality. It wasn't supposed to be taken literally, but if it was said in an official Capcom video, it must be true. Flyan has an excellent video covering this whole topic, including some old footage he found of players creating fake but convincing clips for the time, likely propelling a one-off comment into a legend across the community. Even in the early 2010s, the internet was a very different place to modern day. Back then, it was very easy to trick people with a bit of editing. Once the tail theory started circulating throughout the community, it would become very difficult to clear the air. Eventually, players reached the conclusion that one of Monster Hunter's most famous facts had never been true in the first place. Although, I bet you there's still a good chunk of people out there who still believe in it. And now, potentially the most famous Monster Hunter myth of all time, the desire sensor. This is the idea that the game somehow knows exactly which item you're farming for and lowers the drop rate off that item accordingly. So, if you need a Rathalos plate, you're never going to see one again. If you literally need anything else, you're getting a Rathalos plate every single hunt. The term originated from the Japanese phrase Butsuyoku sensor, loosely translating to greed sensor, and eventually spread throughout the community until the name desire sensor was adopted. Of course, there is absolutely no evidence to suggest a system exists. Data miners have never found it, Capcom have never mentioned it, and yet, after 20 years, almost every single one of us has had an experience leading us to question if it could be real. And so, my final piece of advice today, maybe don't wishlist your next armor piece just to make sure Capcom don't lower your drop rate. Thanks for watching.